Last year, the government introduced quite significant reforms to the way in which it funds students to undertake higher education. In practice, this means that through fees and loans, the funding is following the student rather than being allocated through bodies such as the one I work for, the Funding Council. This in turn, though, means that the government needs to keep a handle on its budget for the costs of supporting students. That means it's asked us to control student numbers. But at the same time, it also wants to ensure that students get to exercise choice about which university or college they attend. And it wants that choice to be a driver, a competitive driver, to ensure that students experience the best possible quality of education that's available. Student number controls are applied at the level of full-time undergraduate students, students who are entering a university. So, for example, it doesn't apply to part-time or postgraduate students. And what we do is we set a number that each university or college is asked not to exceed in any one academic year. The government wants to ensure that students can exercise choice, and it wants to try and ensure that those universities and colleges which are particularly popular with prospective students get the opportunity to respond positively to that demand. They grow if they want to and if they're able to. So the government's increasingly freeing up numbers from the student number control, and it's doing this through what's called the high grades policy. And this is a mechanism whereby we say a number of students are exempt from the controls. They literally sit outside of the control. And we need to define that population of students for any one given year. Government sets the broad parameters for the high grade policy. And in turn, what we do to make it workable in practice, we hope, is to devise what we call an exemptions list, which you can find on our website. And that provides the detail of the qualifications which, if a student holds them, means they literally sit outside of the student number control. If you take a look at the exemptions list, you'll see that combinations of qualifications, and indeed not all EU qualifications, are recognised by that list. Now, this is because we need to keep the process a relatively simple and manageable one, not only for ourselves, but for the admissions staff in universities and colleges. The second reason comes back to why we have a student number control in the first place, which is helping the government manage its HE budget. The population that is uncontrolled needs to be a predictable one that we can forecast with some accuracy. And the more complex the exemptions list, the less rigour there would be in that process. The mechanisms that we've got in place for managing student number controls at the sector level are very much designed to be a tool to assist with that budgetary control which I talked about. They are not mechanisms to replace the very important role that universities do in making individual assessments of students who are applying to them. It remains the case that universities and colleges are autonomous. They make those important decisions. And what we're trying to achieve is a workable control mechanism and not in any way interfere with that important task that universities have got to do. For the year ahead, before we confirm with each university and college their student number control, we provide them with a provisional number. That gives them an opportunity to say to us whether they think the number that we've identified is a reasonable one, especially important, obviously, if they think it's too low. If a university or college thinks the provisional number is too low, then they can come and talk to us, and indeed there's an appeals process. This year, universities and colleges will have scope to recruit more students because the government has asked us to introduce greater flexibility into the student number control mechanism.